Hello everyone and welcome back to blindfold chess training day 3. And today we're gonna not really up the ante, but it's gonna get slightly harder. We're definitely gonna start off with something we already know. We're gonna start off with this chess color speed quiz. And this is done, of course, if you don't already know, to get attuned to the color each coordinate is on. So you can use this for when you do harder training down the line. Okay, we're gonna probably do about 25 to 30 minutes of this, and then 25 to 30 minutes of the thing we did yesterday, which is having a piece, getting that piece to the target square without your opponent having their piece capture your piece. It sounds a bit complicated, but it really isn't. I'll explain it again when we get there. And I have an app on my phone for this actually. It's called Chesseye. If any of you want to download it, you can download it. And specifically, it's called Piece Tour in Chesseye. Okay, let's get started with the colors, the speed quiz. You can do it with me, as in you can load it up on your own computer and try it out as well. So I'll do it a few times just so you see how it's done. Okay, D4 is a dark square, A7. So we know D4 is a dark square. Actually, that diagonal from A7 to... wait a second. Yes, A7 to G1. It's a dark square diagonal. E1 is a dark square because I know the queen on D1 is a light square. D6 is a dark square because sometimes the opponent's bishop, if they're playing black, goes on D6. It's a dark square. E7 is also a dark square because the bishop can also go on E7, and it's just something you got to memorize at the end of the day. It's like me saying, okay, how do I know 4 times 4 is 16? I can work it out, but I can also just know what's 16. So D2 is a dark square because D1 is light square. G5 is a dark square. I just know that. Sometimes bishop goes on G5. C3 is a dark square because it protects if your knight is on C3, it protects the pawn on E4. Okay, now I'm going to speed it up. D7, light square, A3, dark square, G4, light square, 4, dark square, B1, 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 light square, E8, light square, G4, light square, G7, dark square, C3, dark, D6, dark, H8, dark, A3, dark, D6, dark, G7, dark, F7, light, F4, dark, G1, 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 G1. G1. What a tough one. It's dark. Well done. Your final time is 97 seconds and 25. What a beautiful time, I reckon. An amazing time. Okay, now we're actually going to speed it up. So I'm going to start doing them faster, and I'm going to do this for about 20 minutes. You should also be doing it on your own for about 20 minutes. Let me just make sure everything is recording. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Everything is recording. All right. 20 minutes of this. Let's go. So you should be doing it. I'm doing it. You should be doing it as well. Let's go. H8. Always tricks me. Also, if you want to make it easier, you close your eyes and do it. So I will talk about more visualizing the board as we go on later as well. G6, what is G6? It's like, yeah. Okay, 79 seconds, 28. I would actually quickly mention the visualizing of the board itself. So the way I like to do it, I like to look at an 8x8 board in my head and just try and go through each square as they come, visualize out the diagonals from what I already know. Let's say I know C4 is a light square, then I know B5 is also a light square, A6 is a light square, and they lie on the same diagonal. Some people try to do 4x4 boards, so like 4x4, 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 4x4. It works for a while, but what I've seen, all the good players and everyone that really knows how to play blindfold chess, they only visualize just a regular chessboard. And if they can't visualize the chessboard, some people say they can't see a chessboard in their head. I can partially, like right now I can, I would say, and it's getting better the more I do this practice. But some people can't see it at all. Like, I know, I think he's I am David Prowse, I want to say. He talks about how he can play many games blindfolded, but he can't actually see the board in his head. He just keeps track of every piece. So that's one way you can do it when we get there as well. Okay, let me keep doing this. And now we're just going to speedrun. So you guys should be speedrunning this as well. I picked D3. My bad. I picked D3. Okay, got one wrong. Alright. Let's keep going. So you are going to get some wrong in this one. Oh, that was a good run. 30.52. Pretty good run. We'll see if I can get under 25. I think under 25 would be a good score. These guys seem to think it's not. I don't know how they're doing it in 12 seconds. C1, huh? C1, yeah, C1 is a dark score. I don't know why that took me so long. I think I was thinking B1. Okay. Let's keep going. So the more you do this, the more you'll get attuned to it. But eventually there will become diminishing returns. So we'll go for another 10 minutes. You should be also going. Really trying to remember each square. After each turn, you can just close your eyes and try and visualize each square if you can. C1 I got wrong, so C1 I have to make sure, yeah, dark square. Dark square. C1 bishop can go on B2, it can go on A3. C1 to H6 is the diagonal, which is a dark square diagonal. G3 dark, B1 light. Yeah, B8 is a tricky one, but it's dark. Okay, I clicked A4 is dark. I'm losing my mind a little. Okay, let's speed run it. Let's go. G6. Okay, 34.86. That one time I did was quite good then. Okay, let's go a few more. Okay, 31.93. I'm getting more consistent in the 30s. I think a time under 30 would be quite good. If you can get a time under 30, let me know. Actually, let me know your final times in the comments as well. See what you guys can get. Damn. These times are insane. Okay, let me try get a time like 13 seconds. Is that even possible? If I just go on intuition. I guess if you do speed up, your time does improve. 26, 27, still not where they are. But yeah, you can see you can go faster. It just requires yourself trusting yourself a bit. I wouldn't even recommend it. I would just say make sure it's right and then click it. Like think about it in your head and then do it. Don't really go for speed. If you're really confident, you can. Okay, I just got that one wrong. No excuses there. Oh, B2, of course, is a dark square. So you can see I'm making mistakes here as well. So if you're making mistakes, that's all good. Just keep trying. So C1, E1 dark. I keep getting stuck on C1 for some reason. So C1 is dark. I just have to remember that. And B8 is also dark. C1 and B8. Dark. See, I remembered. Okay, 30, 30, 17. Not bad, not bad. That was atrocious. Okay, I think I've got what I wanted out of this. I think you guys probably have gotten what you've gotten out of this as well. So if you want to keep going, you try it for a bit longer. But now we want to get into the real bulk of what we're doing. And this is the piece tool. So how the piece tool works is I'll first list out the opponent's piece. You memorize that piece as a black square, as a black piece on the board. Then I'll list out my piece, or our piece, which will be whatever it is, a piece on the board. And now we're going to have to get our piece to the target square without the opponent's piece capturing us. So it's going to take visualizing quite a bit. I will just give you an example. So let's say I say the opponent's queen is on A4. So visually in your head, you should be imagining a queen on A4. Now it's going to be hard to visualize everywhere the queen can go, but let's have a think. The queen on a4, it controls the a file, so it's controlling all from a1 to a8. It's also controlling the diagonal, so it's controlling a4 to e8. That entire diagonal is being controlled by the queen, and we should think about that in our heads as a4, b5, c6, d7, e8. That light square diagonal, which we know is a light square by our training before, is being controlled by the queen. The other squares that are being controlled is d1 to a4. So d1, c2, b3, a4 is also being controlled. And also the fourth rank is controlled by the queen. So the queen sees about how many squares? Actually, that's a quick question for you. How many squares does the queen actually see without looking at the board? So I believe the answer is 21. 21. Yeah, so here, here, here. Here, 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 here. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I believe that's 21 squares the queen sees. So this is the queen. Now we're going to have to imagine our bishop on, let's say our piece is a bishop, it's on g8. So let's just put the bishop on g8. Now our target square is e2. So how can we get the bishop from g8 to e2? This is going to take a lot of work in your mind to really visualize it. So the bishop on g8, g8 is a light square. Now how can we get to e2? One way I see we can get to e2 is via c4 and then going to e2. In my mind I can see, okay, g8, f7, e6, d5, c4. Once I get to c4, I can maneuver the other way and go c4, d3, e2. Now the problem is c4 is a square that is attacked by the queen. So we can't put the bishop from g8 to c4. Now how else can we get the bishop to this target square e2? Now another way we can do it is via either f7, h5 and e2, or we can go d5, f3 and e2. Those are the two solutions. This is how we're going to solve it. So I'll write in my phone the answer. I'll just pick one of them. I'll pick f7. So f7, h5, f7, h5, and then e2. Very good. It's correct. Now let's keep doing this, and we're going to be doing this for a good 30 minutes. So get a quick drinks break if you need, and we'll get into it. Okay. So our opponent's pieces is a bishop on c1 and a rook on g1. So visualize a bishop on c1, a black bishop on c1, and a rook on g1. And now you should be visualizing everywhere that rook can go. So a good question is, how many squares does the rook control? Now, well done if you said 12, because the rook on g1 controls 7 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares, because the bishop is on c1, so it doesn't control 14. Now, our bishop on c1. Tell me every square that the bishop on c1 controls. You can pause the video. Okay, well done if you said d2, e3, f4, g5, h6, and b2 and a3. Those are the squares the bishop controls. Now, that's the opponent's pieces. Our piece is a knight on a6, and the goal is to get the knight to f3. Now, that's a tough one. So we have to get the knight all the way from a6 to f3. So pause the video, really visualize in your mind. This is where you have to go big brain. Visualize in your mind how that looks. So the knight is on a6. Where can that go? Pause the video, figure it out. And now I'll go through the solution. So the knight on a, by the way, I'm figuring this out as I go as well. I don't know what, I'm just a guy with my eyes closed. So a6, I know that knight is on a light square. So can the knight go from a6 to c5? It looks very natural to me, especially we're going to f3. It's the target square. So knight a6 to knight c5. Okay. From c5, can I go to e4? I believe I can, because the bishop on c1 is a dark squared bishop. So I can go to e4. Now the rook is on g1, I have to be a bit careful. But from e4, I have to get to f3. Now I know two routes. From e4, I can either go d2 to f3, but I can't go to d2 because the bishop is on c1. Now I can also go e4. I can also go e4 to g5 to f3, but the rook is on g1, so I can't go there either. So what a tricky puzzle. This one is throwing me for a loop, as they like to say. Okay, so let's consider a different move other than knight c5, which is classical. Let's consider knight to b4. If I go knight b4, let's say I go knight b4, knight b4, knight d3. Okay. So knight b4, knight d3 may work. Because after knight b4, knight d3, I can go knight e5. And e5 to f3 should work. Yeah, I think that's right. So the solution I think it is knight b4, knight d3, which the bishop is here so it doesn't control, knight to e5, knight to f3. And the reason this one didn't work, I guess it would have worked as well, because you just go to d3, but I was going to e4 first, and the shame is I can't go to g5, and I can't go to d2, so how can I access f3? So that's the correct solution, I believe. I will write it down. So knight b4. b4 to d3 to e5 to f3. Okay, good. Next one is slightly easier. So the opponent's queen is on g8. Our knight is on a2. We have to get the knight to b2. Opponent's queen g8, our knight is on a2, we have to get the queen to b2. Now run through the same process. Which squares does the opponent's queen control? And let's try not to get hit by them. So pause the video. Okay, let me go through the solution. So a simple way I see is knight b4, knight d3, knight b2 should work, but the queen is on g8. So as the queen is on g8, what squares does it control? I know that g8 diagonal goes to c4, b3, a2. So actually currently the queen is hitting the knight. But yeah, I think knight b4 works because the queen controls b3, not b4. Then once I go to d3, the queen does not control d3. And I can go to b2. Maybe knight c1, knight d3 also works. I think both work actually. So I think you can go here, here, and here. Or you can go here. Oh! Yeah, you can go here, here. For some reason I thought I made a mistake. No, that's right. So knight b4 was my right answer before. Knight b4, knight d3. Good. Okay, next one. Our opponent's queen is on h2, and they have a knight on h6. So they have a queen on h2 and a knight on h6. Our piece is a knight on c8, which we're trying to get to d4. So it's a tricky one. This one you're really going to have to visualize. So queen h2, knight h6 for the opponent, and our knight's on c8, and we have to get it to d4. So they have a queen on h2. What squares does it see? It sees the entire second rank. It also sees h2 to b8. Also, it sees up to h6 where the queen is, where the knight is. it also sees the g1 square and the h1 square. The knight on h6 sees some squares, but let's leave that for now because, okay, we're trying to get the knight from c8 to, did I just forget the square? d4. It was d4. Okay, my first question is, why can't I just go knight c8? I mean, I can go knight c8. I mean, I can't go knight c8 because the knight is on c8. So, knight d6. Can I play knight d6? No, I can't because the queen is on h2 and h2 g3 f4 e5 d6. So I can't play knight d6. That's out of the question. Now, can I play knight a6? I can play knight a6, but does that help me achieve anything? Knight c5. Knight a6, knight c5. Knight b4. Knight b3. Knight a6. Knight a6, knight c5. So knight a6, knight c5. I can go knight b3, knight d4. And I believe that wins. So a knight is on c8. We have to get it to d4. Now, the issue is, and the queen on h2 and the knight on, I don't think the knight on h6 actually did anything. I guess it does if you go this path, if you think this is the correct answer, which I should have considered, but the knight on h6 does stop you here. Now, the way I came to this conclusion was actually quite wrong. Because my move was knight a6. Oh, I thought the knight was on b8. No, but if I thought the knight was on b8, I would play this move. How could I play knight a6? Let me cut this out of the video. You never saw this happen. Okay, for the next one, our queen is on h2. Or the opponent. Okay, so for this next one, the opponent's queen is on h2. Their knight is on h6. And our pieces, we have a knight on c8. And we're trying to get it to d4. So it's a tough one. So take your time to visualize it. See what squares the queen sees. Queen sees, pause the video. So the queen sees all the way from h2 to b8. Also, the second rank is controlled. Also, up to h6. Also, the knight sees certain key squares. But okay, let's try and get our knight there. From c8 to d4. From c8, the knight can go to b6. I don't really like that because from b6, the d4 square is a diagonal away, two squares away. And when that's the case, when it's like this versus this, it's really hard to get the knight to this square. It takes 4 moves, so I don't like that. And we have to do this in the quickest possible time. So I guess a simple question is, why can't I go knight d6? But I can't go knight d6 because the queen takes. Okay, and why can't I go knight a7? Knight a7, knight b5. Knight a7, knight b5, knight d4 should be the win. So here, 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 here. And I think I should have also considered this idea. But this I kind of disregarded because it takes the same moves first of all. And second of all, there's a knight here on h6. So it controls this. So take your time with these ones. Really try and visualize it out. But yeah, I believe that's the right answer. Knight a7 to b5. It's correct. Okay, we're going to do a few more. And if you're still struggling with this, I recommend getting the app and trying it yourself. It's called It's called Chess Eye. And the format is called piece store in the app. Okay, opponent's queen is on a6, their bishop is on a7. So their queen is on a6, their bishop is on a7. That's good because it's close together. You can visualize it, a6 light square, a7 dark square. Now we have to get a knight from e4 to b2. An e4 knight, we have to get it to b2. So pause the video, really try and visualize in your head all the diagonals, see what squares they control, what squares we can move to. You won't see the board fully right now, but you can really try and visualize it. Okay, pause the video. Okay, I know from e4, I can go to c3. From c3, I can go to d1, which I can go to b2. Now, the only question is c3 controlled? They have a queen on a6 and a bishop on a7, so I don't think c3 is controlled, no. And I don't think d1 is controlled. So I believe that's just correct. c3, d1, here. Bishop and queen is here. So yeah, I think that's quite easy actually. Good, it's correct. Now, the next one, the opponent's queen is on c4, and they have a bishop on g7. So this is getting much harder. Queen on c4, bishop on g7. We have to get the bishop from a3 to a5. So they have a queen on c4, a bishop on g7. We have to get the bishop from a3 to a5. Yeah. Pause the video. Okay, let's get into it. So this one is a bit of a tricky one. The bishop on g7, what it does is it controls the entire diagonal a1 to g8. So I can't play bishop b2 if I want and reroute the bishop that way. Of course, the obvious move is bishop b4, bishop a5, but there's queen on c4, so we can't do that. We also can't play bishop c5 because the queen is there. Can we play bishop d6? Now, bishop d6 looks tempting, but the reason I don't want to play it is because bishop d6, you have to play bishop c7 to get to a5, and the queen is just on c4, so it will take you. The move I want to play is bishop e7 to play bishop d8, from d8 to go to e5. So, like this, bishop e7, bishop d8, bishop a5. I think that wins. The queen is on c4, doesn't see that. And I think that's the only solution I can even see. Ah, there is one more. Oh no, there isn't. There isn't one more. It's the only one. The bishop controls this. You can't even go through c1 because this. You can't go here because this. You can't go here because this. You can't go here because where you're going to go after. I guess you could go the long way like this, but that takes too many moves and we're trying to find the shortest path. So e7, d8 is correct. Let's do one final one, and if you would like to practice more, feel free to do so via the app. And yeah, that would do us for today. Tomorrow, we're gonna be going through a game. So we're gonna go through a game and a couple puzzles. So yeah, we're making some good progress. Okay, for this last one, the opponent's queen is on h3. So visualize that. Controls 21 squares, as we know. And the opponent's... Wait a second. Did I just make a mistake? It doesn't control 21 squares, right? It does. Yeah, it does. ADHD. Okay. Opponent's queen is on h3. Our bishop is on f2, and we have to get the bishop from f2 to c1. pause the video. Okay, so this one, the obvious move, so you would be thinking if the bishop is on f2, we can play bishop e3, bishop c1. Doesn't work, the queen is on h3. Now bishop d4, bishop's on f2, so bishop d4. Can we play something like bishop d4? Bishop d4, bishop b2, bishop c1. I think that's a good solution. And I think that does work. So bishop is on f2. d4, bishop here and here. The queen is on h3. And I don't think there's a faster way because you can't go here. And what else can you do? Yeah, I think you can do this, but this takes one extra move. So yeah, I think bishop d4, bishop b2 is the best. d4, bishop b2. Good, it's correct. Okay, I think that's quite good for today. I think you've done well. And that will do us for blindfold training day 3. And we are making slow but steady progress. And eventually we will get to the blindfold games, really trying to visualize the board. But yeah, this stuff is really important and it's going to help you quite a bit. It's quite boring, I know. Most people won't do it, but if you can do it, you can make it through, you're going to become a very good player. Okay, see you tomorrow.